Dear viewers, it's not very often that I get to chat with a Union Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs. I have with me today Mr. Anand Sharma. Warm welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You seem to have very big responsibility with you.
That's true. Responsibility and also a great privilege to serve the country and to represent India in the multilateral forums.
But coming from the Nehruvian foreign policy, which is mostly understood as being very passive, as taking whatever that came your way and not even speaking up for yourself or the interests of your own country, is it any different today?
I don't think that's the correct appreciation.
Okay.
Because
though it was the most noble of all foreign policy.
no, let me explain.
Okay.
Jawaharlal Nehru understood
Okay.
that global developments, the evolving situation, and he was very proactively involved with the freedom movements which were taking place in different regions of the world,
Okay.
and the anti-imperialist struggle. Prior to India's independence, he had shaped the foreign policy of an independent India. And when I said that he knew where India's interests are, because foreign policy is not alien to a country.
Okay.
Foreign policy is integral to the domestic
Okay.
interests and the national interests.
Particularly the business interests.
Well, that too, but
Okay.
also when you talk of strategic interests
Okay.
are not entirely business.
Okay.
In current context, you can say,
In a conflict-free world, do you think the interests are different?
well, the world is not conflict-free.
Okay, at least in some
No, there are
sectors.
regions trapped in violence and conflict,
Okay.
violent conflicts, and also the rising scourge of terrorism. So
Okay.
when we look at the world today,
Okay.
it's not a peaceful world we are looking at. And how you describe a peaceful world, it's not only the physical violence, but also when you look at the vast regions
Okay.
trapped again in poverty and hunger, which gives rise to social conflicts.
Okay.
But going back to what Nehru did, India under Nehru had acted firmly and in solidarity with the countries which were fighting
Okay.
for their inalienable right for
Okay.
freedom.
Okay.
You look at the struggles in Africa, struggles in many countries of Latin
Palestine.
America, in Asia, all over. No, Palestine is still unfinished agenda.
Okay.
But when we look at Sudan, when you look at Kenya,
Okay.
when you look at Tanzania, South Africa,
But the saddest thing
Namibia,
is that even after supporting those countries when they became free, they did not stand by us.
they
in
do.
many of the
They
cases.
do.
Is it any
Even
different
today,
to what
even
that I
today,
asked because
most of the African countries,
Okay.
they not only have respect for India, but there is a tremendous goodwill that prevails. And bilaterally also, our engagement is very significant, and also at the regional and the continental level with the African continent.
Okay.
Recently, barely a month ago, we had in New Delhi the first India-Africa Forum Summit.
Okay.
And if you go by the declaration and the framework cooperation agreement, it's very clear that what has developed in the last 4 decades or more is an enduring partnership
Okay.
between India and Africa. And also, when you look at the multilateral forums, whether the United Nations, India's position that the UN is in need of urgent reforms to reflect the contemporary realities of the 21st century, which would include the expansion of the Security Council
Okay.
in both
But that's
permanent
what we
and...
seem to see, but it doesn't appear like the developed countries have actually realized this
Well, that is an
reality.
issue.
Okay.
You cannot
Because
have
is it because
multilateral
we have not-
organizations.
Is it because that we have not yet, found that ability in
I
us
don't think
to
so.
do arm twisting?
It's not a question of arm twisting.
Okay.
We have an overwhelming majority.
Okay.
When you talk of multilateral organizations, they do not function as a club,
Okay.
because the Security Council, as it was constituted, is not representative of the contemporary realities.
Okay.
It represents the power equations in the order that emerged after the Second World War,
Okay.
when more than 3/4 member countries of the United Nations today were not even independent nation states,
Okay.
including India.
Okay.
Therefore, when we have taken a position that the reforms must be all embracing, and India's
But nobody
right...
seems to hear that
No,
Nobody
it is.
seems to really give much
Well, it's a
credence to
question of
that.
who's following and who's listening.
Okay, but the truth is
Because
that
entire Africa has endorsed
Okay.
countries, regional countries,
Yeah.
and the summit also.
Okay.
The Africa Union has declared unqualified support
Okay,
to India
okay.
and India's claim to be a permanent member in the expanded
Okay.
Security Council.
Even for the critics of the Nehruvian foreign policy, even if they called it very passive, but what we have today, many people say that it's worse than being passive, because at least during Nehru's time, like what happened in 1959, when the Tibetans came to India, at least India welcomed. But if it were to happen in 2008, we would have listened to the left parties, and the Congress would have just said no to the Tibetans.
Well, you cannot remain frozen in a particular time. When it comes to welcoming those who need shelter,
Okay.
India has always welcomed. I don't
Okay.
think India will ever change.
But in coalition politics today, the world is very different from Nehru's time.
Well, the world is different, so is India. But let me tell you,
Okay.
we continue to adhere to the same policies. As long as you have this differentiation between the developed and the rich countries, and the countries which are developing, countries which are poor, the relevance of the Nehruvian foreign policy will remain, and also of the Gandhian
But
principles.
the most interesting thing was during Nehru's time, even if the others did not listen, there was option for lateral leadership at the global level. But now, it's like, you have to fall in line. Because,
No, I don't think
sometimes
so.
it's just a whimper once
No,
once
that's
in a
not
while.
true. That again is not, I'll say, a fair appreciation of the global situation.
Okay.
We lived in a world which was bipolar
Okay.
until 1990, when the world was divided between two power blocks. That's one led by the United States of America and the other by the Soviet
And
Union.
we were lost in between.
No,
because
we were
don't
not.
actually
We were
know.
not. If you look at, if you read history, the non-aligned movement made its own contribution. Non-alignment didn't mean that you are not aligned to A or B. Well, that was partly true.
Okay.
But at the same time, it was a coalition, it was an alliance of the countries which were striving to have a fair and equitable global order. And even today, what is happening at the United Nations, what's happening when we are talking of the WTO, ongoing talks on Doha development process, on agriculture, to protect the rights of the farmers of the poor and the developing countries. We all are working together. So that non-aligned bloc, the South-South cooperation, what we call it, is standing firm and together.
Okay.
Right from the days of Bandung Conference until 2008.
Okay.
And we form the majority, two-third majority of the UN.
As a foreign minister, when you travel all over the world, what kind of an opinion do you get from people about India?
Well, India is respected.
Okay.
And India's esteem can be seen when you interact with leaders of the other
That was
countries.
not reflected in the recent visit of our president to the Latin American
I think that
countries.
it was.
Okay. She was
I'm
not treated
very
well.
sorry to say that those who were commenting on it perhaps were not at all informed of foreign policy and engagement.
Okay.
Our president went on a state visit.
Okay.
She was received by the presidents of the concerned countries.
Okay, that's all that matters.
No, that is all. When she was received by the presidents,
But
she
we are
was
not
given
really
the
able to
highest
connect with
protocol.
the people, because sometimes
You don't
if-
go and address public meetings.
Okay.
When other presidents come,
Okay.
for example, the US president, when he came to India, the French president,
Okay, but we at least ensure that they are not made to feel embarrassed.
no, we were not embarrassed at all.
Okay.
They gave the highest possible welcome
Degree of-
and the protocol.
Okay.
What the media has misrepresented is about the attendance in a parliament session.
Okay.
Now, you can't force your own legislators or your
If
own
they were
MPs to be
think that our
present.
country was important in the global arena, they would have certainly sat and listened to her.
Listen, United States of America is an important country.
Okay.
When President Bush came here,
Uh,
your own members of parliament of many political parties decided to boycott.
okay.
Can you force in a democracy members of parliament to attend?
Okay.
But that does not diminish the engagement. If you look at what's happening, say she went to Brazil. Now we have a strategic partnership with Brazil. Look at the deepening economic engagement. And India, Brazil and South Africa, these three countries have come together as three emerging powers, three large economies, and three vibrant democracies of three continents.
Okay.
of Asia, Africa and Latin America as part of the IBSA initiative,
Okay.
which is strategic and which has also a substantial economic component and social component.
Okay.
So when we are working together, it's a declared strategic partnership,
Okay.
and it straddles the field of nuclear science, space science,
Okay.
scientific research. If you look at our energy interests and Brazil's position as a major energy power today and a major agricultural power, then you will see that our relationship is absolutely excellent.
But there is also this criticism that perhaps this assumption that most of our foreign policy is dependent on a lot of imagination, because we assume that things are the way that we imagine them to be.
No. I think it is those who say that, I will say, are not conversant with the nuances of diplomacy,
Okay.
because there are no assumptions. Diplomacy is not esoteric.
Okay.
Today it factors in a large number of sectors and
Okay.
issues. Sectors which are economic,
Okay.
which are political, which are strategic, but at the same time, your diplomacy today also has to deal with issues of energy security, of climate change, of poverty, of hunger. All these issues get factored
But
in.
most importantly, when Indians are troubled abroad, when Indians are killed abroad, we don't really react as much as we are supposed to.
I do not know what you mean by reaction. Reaction does not mean
because
strong
what
words.
If at all that were to happen to an American in India, that would have been a different case altogether.
No, I don't think so.
But recently what happened in Mississippi, when the construction workers from India were complaining about a lot of things there. India, I mean, though you could have not expected India to be reacting in as vociferous terms as possible, but still, much more was expected.
Listen, when you are dealing with another country,
Okay.
then there is a way.
Okay. But everybody else deals with us in a different
No,
way.
I don't think so. Nobody abuses us, India as a country, when a foreign tourist is raped or murdered.
Okay.
Sorry, how many times it happens? Even in this city of Bangalore, in Goa, elsewhere, in Rajasthan, every second day we hear of these tragic incidents where our guests, those who have come, and they get assaulted, they get killed. And then nobody abuses India, because if such instances take place, you do not hold a government and a country responsible.
Okay.
But whenever Indian interests have been threatened, or of the Indian citizens, we have taken it up. For example, whether with America, when it comes to the visas for our professionals, which they've increased. See, what you are not appreciating is that today, those countries which had the images of India only of land of snakes or half-naked
tigers,
fakirs,
yeah.
today they are talking of India as a major space power, major IT power, a major BPO power. When we look at the service industry, when you look at the number of people who come to India, the intensity of the engagement, now that is getting acknowledged and recognized. How many of our professionals are studying there? How many of our students are studying in America today? Almost 90,000.
When you speak about America, there is on one hand that you want a very good relationship with that country, but on the other hand, you want to make a political statement every time you speak about your relationships, vis-a-vis American standards.
No, let me tell you. We pursue a foreign policy
which mostly political, isn't it?
No,
it's not in the interest of the country. It's Congress's policy, if at all it's Congress in power.
Foreign policy is not
BJP's.
Foreign policy, no.
With or our relationship with Iran, per se.
Very good. You see, we engage all major powers of the world and all emerging powers. If you look at India's strategic partnerships today, it's with, as I mentioned about Brazil, South Africa, Russia, Nigeria, Japan, United States of America, United Kingdom, with the European Union, with Germany. So it's not confined to one country.
Countries.
It's not a question of priority. We engage now. We have this engagement with African continent, with Africa Union. 2 major countries of Africa I named. Now, it is not that you deal with one country. We are 2 bigger countries.
But there is not a single country on which we have any kind of influence, right? Either
I do not know what we.
Or of.
That's not true. That's not true.
Because today, if the world were to expect us to talk to Iran and to tell the country about a few things, saying that, okay, we are with you, but at the same time, why don't you conform to a few things? We have lost that kind of influence.
I don't think so. In sovereign nation states,
But sometimes there are also
listen,
friendships, right?
Yeah, well, we
globally.
talk. But let me be very clear.
Yeah.
We cannot be prescriptive. India will never be prescriptive in its conduct of foreign policy.
Okay.
We would not like to be told by anybody what I should be doing. Similarly,
But
we
cannot do
respect other
anything.
countries.
No, because we are living in
No,
a
no.
community of nations, aren't we?
Correct. But sovereign nations.
Okay.
Sovereign nations cannot be
But we
dictated
also
to.
interdependent.
Well, we talk to each other.
Till date, we have not been able to do anything
can't
about
force.
Burma at all.
Well,
It's
we-
such a, it's a
that's
shame
not-
on the side,
that's not
isn't
true.
it? And we don't even have the guts to talk about it. And that is why a lot of people
It's
have
not
the
a question of guts. Listen,
the people don't have the gumption.
diplomacy
you know,
does not mean strong words.
Okay.
That is the diplomacy which may be conducted by unwise people. Diplomacy does not mean abusing others.
Not at
Diplomacy
least-
does
at
not
least to be
no,
able to.
diplomacy does not mean arrogance. Diplomacy means
Okay.
tact, humility, and engaging others.
Okay.
We have been supportive in Burma, in Myanmar, of the UN efforts. It is because of our Prime Minister and our government's intervention that the UN Special Envoy Gambari was accepted.
Okay.
It is because of us that now they are going in for inclusive democratic reforms. And the junta there has committed itself to that.
Okay.
But you must also understand whether it's Sri Lanka, whether it is Iraq, whether it is Afghanistan, the world together cannot resolve those issues. No one country, no group of countries is in a position to overnight change situations.
But because of what some people say, our indecisive stances or
On what?
stands,
On what?
people in Nepal today want a better relationship with China rather than with India.
No, that's not true. That's
And
not true.
That's
I don't agree with that.
That's why, you know, I mean, maybe because of an unspoken economic embargo that we have actually placed the country in. Today they want a real link with
I don't
China.
think there has never been an embargo.
No, because whatever it is, though they've been our neighbor, and we've always behaved like we've been protecting that country. You know the state of Nepal today?
Well, perhaps
We've
then you
not
are not,
actually done
I'm
as
sorry,
much as we are
then you are
supposed to
not
do.
aware
Uh.
that how much support India gives to Nepal. It is India which can be credited with persuading the Maoists to become part of the democratic mainstream, to participate in elections, to give up arms. It is because of India that the seven-party alliance took place. And India fully supported the return of Nepal to multi-party democracy. We give financial assistance. The kind of engagement that India has, even we give budgetary support to Nepal.
Okay.
So, this economic embargo is shocking. In fact, it is the generosity of India and its people which is recognized very much in Nepal. But
Okay.
Nepal is a sovereign country.
And it can do whatever it pleases.
No, as I've said, we do not seek to be
But
a
do you
big
think
brother.
that you'll be okay with, you know, Nepal doing anything with anybody?
Of course,
Even you know, putting India's interest to peril.
I don't think they will ever do that.
Okay.
No, they have said so.
That is what is Nehruvian policy, right? Just trust your neighbors, trust the
Well,
other
if you-
countries, and
if
you
you-
know the kind of prices that you have paid till date.
No, we
for
have
that.
not.
Haven't we?
We have not.
Okay.
Those whom we have trusted have stood by us.
Okay.
You cannot live in a world with bitterness and distrust.
Okay.
I don't think that Indian philosophy, Indian culture, Indian heritage teaches that. And when you are talking of which country has succeeded, you look at the most powerful of countries. They do not influence their tiny neighbors.
Okay.
So this is the world which we live in today, though I may also mention that this erroneous impression that, you know, the world after being a bipolar one has become a unipolar one is not true.
Okay.
It's a multipolar world.
Okay.
It was a
And-
transient phase of what you referred to earlier of the dominance of one country. That's not there.
And don't you think somewhere our weakness in foreign policy is exposed in our inability to put through this nuclear deal?
Well, I don't think it is the weakness of our foreign policy. It is our internal dynamics.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
question of
It's-
building a
it's-
broad
it's
national
called that
consensus.
very euphemistically, because you know the differences. It's not dynamics, because you know.
Well, how you put it,
you
again,
know,
it's a
with the
question of
kind
language.
with the kind of experience that the Congress Party has, certainly you should know how to handle such larger issues like the nuclear issue.
No, we have handled it correctly, but
Okay.
we can't force others.
Okay.
In a democracy, we can't dictate to the left front who are supporting the government.
So if you cannot dictate
So we talk to them.
to your friends, you cannot dictate things to your neighbors.
No, we
You
don't believe in
you don't-
dictating
you
to
don't-
anybody.
You cannot dictate, but at least you can you can at least engage people.
But aren't
and,
we engaging?
Ensure a positive outcome.
Aren't we engaging?
But when is the outcome going to?
Outcome I cannot say. It takes two to tango.
Okay.
Not one.
Okay.
Even yesterday we were talking to the left front, as you are aware. So there is a platform to engage, to talk. But when we are a coalition government, and particularly matters concerning the critical issues of foreign policy and strategy engagements, you need a broad national consensus. So we are trying to evolve. It's unfortunate that that has not happened. And let me tell one thing. India's national interest demands reintegration with the global mainstream for civilian nuclear commerce, for our long-term energy security. And India's national interest is only getting hurt by this delay.
Okay. One more thing about the NRIs. It's been believed for a very long time that India needs the foreign money coming to NRIs or the foreign remittances, but we actually not bothered about those people living abroad. And
That's
working
not again
for us.
true.
Okay,
That's
but
not
we
true.
have been trying to do, but still, if
No.
people have been complaining about, maybe it's about to take for instance, like the number of people who are working from this part of the country abroad, maybe in the Gulf or in the US or the UK or wherever. But what are we actually doing about that?
First of all, it is our government, the UPA government, which has set up a dedicated ministry, and that too headed by a cabinet minister for the overseas Indian affairs. So there's a ministry, full-fledged ministry.
Okay.
We have the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Every January they come. Those who have made their own notable contributions in different fields are given recognitions. They are given the Pravasi Awards.
Okay.
That's one part. You talked of remittances. Do you know that inward remittances of overseas Indians or the Indian diaspora has far exceeded that of the remittances of overseas Chinese to China?
Yeah.
And it is 3 times the amount which we get as FDIs. We got about $29 billion as overseas remittances.
Okay.
And when it comes to their interests, we've always taken it up. We have our people going to Gulf in large numbers from, mainly from Andhra and Kerala more.
Okay.
But many of them get also duped by agents, unscrupulous agencies. When they land there, their identity documents are taken away. They are not given what they have been promised. And then we give them identity documents. We bring our people back. Only last year we brought more than 80,000 people back from Gulf. And it's the government of India which does that.
Okay.
It's the government of India charters which go there. It's our embassies and our missions which give them the identity documents. As and when anything has happened in any part of the world, we have stepped in immediately to protect the interests of our citizens.
But today Indians have become an eyesore in a lot of countries because of their ability
On
to
the
earn.
contrary, India today is the
No,
darling of
because-
the
because-
world.
No, yes, but India as a country, but when people work in other countries, when Indians take, the other people's jobs away.
I don't think Indians are taking the jobs away.
But if that
This-
is because,
this is not true.
Recently, you've seen these protests in Australia too of the taxi drivers, asking for protection. It's not about, because there is this inherent fear that maybe they are the target of new racial discrimination or
I don't view it
violence.
like that.
Okay,
Because Indian industry is generating employment worldwide.
Okay.
You don't take Indian workers. Look at the acquisitions and mergers that have taken place.
Okay.
Some of the biggest investments globally have been made by Indian companies.
Okay.
Whether it's the takeover
So
of
you say it's
Arcelor.
been squared off.
No. Take the case of the Chorus, which the Tatas took. Take the case of
Arcelor.
Now, there have been very many major mergers or acquisitions by Indian pharmaceutical companies, by IT companies, and also when you look at the amount of employment that Indian companies have generated. If Tatas have taken over Chorus, or if they have taken over the Rover, they have not thrown out the workers there. Rather, they have ensured their economic security and continued employment.
Okay.
Indian companies do not take the workforce from India. And when you look at the BPO, it is again a part of global economic engagement, the service industry. those multinationals who are actually working with the Indian BPOs, Indian service providers, are doing it out of pure economics and sound economics.
Okay. But today, do you see some kind of a threat, if you may call it, of people coming from other countries, like, for example, from China to India to work here, offering their services at a lower cost than what we pay our own people?
No, I don't think so, because
Because
the
tomorrow you
movement
cannot
of
say
people.
no, because if our people can go and work elsewhere.
No, what about Indians in China? What about the number of Indian companies which have invested there in Shanghai or in their special economic zones? So we believe in movement of people. We as a country do not feel insecure. We are a confident nation, a strong country. Nor we get influenced as far as the conduct of our foreign policy is concerned. Nor can be pushed around. India is too proud for that. At the same time, we are capable to safeguard our interests.
How is it to work in the UPA government?
Well, it's a great experience.
Okay, but how long is this government going to last? The full term?
As long as its term is. But
Okay.
of course, we all recognize that a coalition is different from a single party majority government. Earlier we were used to that. Now it's a different kind of experience.
Okay.
There are constraints and there are challenges in a coalition.
Okay. People say that when you were in the Youth Congress, you were part of the Sanjay Gandhi coterie, weren't you?
No, I worked very closely with Rajiv Gandhi. When I was the IYC president, Rajiv Gandhi was the Congress president.
Okay, but there was this coterie business, wasn't there?
I don't think which coterie.
Okay, which is actually seen once again in Rahul Gandhi's case, maybe, because, you know, that's what Mr. Das told when he resigned.
Well,
from
Mr.
the party.
Das is a rank opportunist.
Okay.
He should be
As long
ashamed
as
of
he, as long
himself.
as he was in the party, he was
No.
okay.
No, as long as party had given him everything and he was a minister, then it is all right. Now, when you talk of coterie, I would like to know what we mean.
A
All
group
the
of people
leaders
who would accept anything that their leader does.
Every leader in the world needs colleagues and associates and advisors. Name one who functions in isolation. You yourself will need few colleagues in your studio.
Okay.
Even a corporate leader has to have his own advisor, has to have his own board. Do we call them coteries?
But is it true
We are a
that,
democracy.
Somewhere you're isolating Mr. Rahul Gandhi in your own party by making him very special, by building some kind of a fortress
Well, he
around
is
him,
special.
by building some kind of a defensive fortress around
It's
him.
not a question of defensive fortress. I'm sure that he's strong and popular enough to take care of these things. But at the same time, in a democracy, people choose and people elect.
Okay.
Let's not forget that Rahul Gandhi has been elected from Amethi by a record majority.
Okay.
It's the people who have elected him.
Okay.
And it's people who will vote again.
Okay.
But yes, he is young. He comes from a very distinguished lineage. What's wrong with that? Those who are criticizing that perhaps do not have any lineage to show that here 5 generations have been engaged in struggle and sacrifice. Whether it was his father, his grandmother, his great-grandfather, and the great-great-grandfather. So you look at 5 generations,
Okay.
and today when he is there in the Congress party, it is for us to decide what position Rahul Gandhi will have, and that the future belongs to the younger generation. They have to lead India to its rightful place in the 21st century.
Okay. You've been in the party for about 38 years now. Starting
36.
36 years. I give you the extra 2 years. Anyway, so what do you feel about people coming one day and becoming something the next day in your party? Do you think they are as
It's for the party to
same
decide.
as people who have really toiled for the party for so many years? There have been instances where people have really struggled for the party, have been ignored. You may be one of the fortunate few.
No, it's not. I mean, after 34 years, I became a minister of state.
Okay.
I didn't become a minister.
Yeah, that's what it is. But some
immediately.
people
Yes, it happens. You
come
know, you
today
cannot
and become something tomorrow.
Well, you cannot have in democratic movements very rigid regimes and rules.
Okay.
But yes, it's true that experience and seniority gets recognized both within the party when we talk of the leadership, within the civil society, and amongst the party cadres. Since I have come from the organization, from the grassroots, wherever I travel in India, the party cadres recognize me, and I recognize most of them of my generation at least.
And you feel special because you came up the ladder.
Well, yes, but I approach it with the sense of duty and humility.
Okay.
Because we must remember that these are positions of responsibility, not of authority and power. That's how I view my responsibility.
What do you feel about the Karnataka elections? You come here to campaign, haven't
Yes. We are confident of winning. And
That's what the Congress party says every time.
no, let me tell you,
With any election.
because people have seen all,
Okay.
and the voters are wise enough. It's a Congress party which has a proud record of providing political stability as well as development. And whereas the BJP and the JD are concerned, they had come together in an exercise of rank political opportunism. And there were few casualties there. First casualty is their own credibility of the BJP as a party of principles, the credibility of Devi Gowda as a secular individual and secular leader. Third casualty was the infrastructure development of this state. It was the Congress which had put Bangalore on the world map. The various schemes which were initiated, it became the IT hub, the hub of the service sector. And what happened after that, if you look at the infrastructure and how it got destroyed. And also the economic and social development. So we are very clear that people will come back to the Congress given the fact that Congress has been consistent in saying and doing what it has said. I do not say that we do not have challenges or the grey areas, but today if the BJP is going to the people and saying, oh, we have been betrayed. Betrayed by whom? They betrayed the people. People didn't ask them to, this Yedurappa, the BJP leader, to prostrate before Kumaraswamy. They were squabbling for lucrative portfolios. They forgot the people. Then finally it was a contract that you are there and after a particular time.
But the case of the Congress here, though you may call it as collective leadership, that just reflects the inability of the party to find one single person to reflect.
I don't think so.
I
I don't think so. Whom is the BJP projecting? Let me come to you. Whom is the BJP projecting? One who was sulking, went on a yatra, then he was called back by the JD, by the Gowda family.
Okay.
Then again the agreement was not reached. He went back and resumed his yatra, then again came back and he was sworn in for a week and then he was shown the door.
Okay.
Means they have heaped ridicule upon themselves. As far as we are concerned, we have a representative group of leaders. They're working together.
Okay.
And representative because they come from diverse sections, diverse interest groups, and eventually I'm sure that after the elections, the Congress Legislature Party will unanimously
find
choose
its leader.
No, we will, because we are a national party.
But don't you think that way Congress party is very good at finding excuses for everything?
It's not an excuse. This is the
Sometimes,
democratic functioning.
The best way to defend itself.
No, it's the right of the legislators to choose their leader.
Okay. Mr. Sharma, thank you very much for having come to the show.
You're welcome.